From the luxuries and guarded halls of a palace in Caracas to a federal courtroom in New York City, pleading his innocence. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. We're talking about ousted Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, now pleading not guilty to all federal charges in court today. Maduro and his wife already back in jail after they were captured from their home by U.S. military troops who swooped in by helicopter and hauled the dictator and his wife to America in handcuffs. The U.S. is accusing the ousted leader of conspiring with vicious drug cartels for the last 25 years. Today, Maduro's son, Nicolás, addressing Venezuela's National Assembly, saying if we normalize the kidnapping of a head of state, no country is safe. Senior national policy reporter Ann Flaherty, also retired Lieutenant Colonel Rachel VanLandingham, joining me now for more. So, Ann, let's talk about who is actually running Venezuela right now. Trump took Maduro, but some of his key allies are still in place.
Yeah, that's right. We have the vice president of Venezuela, Rodriguez, who says she's been sworn in as president of Venezuela and who has sworn her allegiance to Maduro. We've also heard from Maduro's son, who says that they're waiting Maduro's return to Venezuela so he can continue to run that country. Now, we do know, we have heard from over the weekend, President Trump says, well, we're in charge of Venezuela now. Then, of course, we've had his top aides sort of walking that back, softening that a little bit and saying, you know, we're hopeful that we can work with the existing government there. And there is a reason for that. That is because if you are going to bring U.S. oil companies into Venezuela, as President Trump hopes, they're going to need protection or some kind of security. Either U.S. troops are going to have to provide that or the new government is going to have to provide that. And right now, with so many people in Venezuela still pledging their allegiance to Maduro, that's a major concern.
Got it. So, Rachel, what do you think? Did Maduro's capture violate international law here in any way, shape, or form, you think?
It absolutely did. International law does not allow for extraterritorial criminal law enforcement to enforce the indictment against Mr. Maduro. This was a gross violation of Venezuela's sovereignty, despite the fact that Mr. Maduro is not a nice man. I mean, he was a repressive authoritarian leader who brutalized his own people, but that does not give the United States the right to blatantly violate its sovereign territorial integrity.
So, Ann, Secretary Hegseth also just spoke about the raid moments ago. What did he say? We were on the air and I wasn't able to hear the entire comments.
Yeah, so he talked about there being 200 of what he called the greatest Americans who had descended upon Venezuela those 3 nights ago to capture Maduro. So that seems to be alluding to the number of troops and other government personnel that were required to carry off this operation, which there was no doubt it was a flawless tactical operation. We are told that only about 6 service members were injured in that, but that they were going to be okay, that it was not critical injuries. We also heard from Secretary Hegseth saying that Maduro's wife, they weren't aware that the attack was about to happen, that his wife had said just 3 minutes before they had arrived. I think I hear aircraft outside, alluding to the overwhelming force that was about to come into their sleeping compound. They were in a fortress in Venezuela. Of course, President Trump saying that they tried to reach a safe room right before they were captured and then put on board the Iwo Jima, a Navy vessel, and then, of course, brought to New York.
So, Rachel, we have also reported on the U.S. seizure of oil tankers near Venezuela now. What is going to happen with that oil that we've seized, and what do you see happening here as we move forward?
Well, I would hope we would have a return to legality regarding the oil tankers that have been seized. I mean, there is a process that's established in U.S. federal court for the U.S. federal government to seek a judicial finding that the oil now belongs to the United States and can be used, for example, to pay victims of terrorism, for example, and go into the U.S. coffers. Regarding what's going to happen in Venezuela, that's anyone's call. And I want to highlight, Secretary Hegseth is right. I mean, our men and women in uniform exercise great courage and professionalism in what they did over the weekend. That doesn't make the U.S., violating international law and being a thug and going in and kidnapping and capturing a leader of another country doesn't make it right. It's just a distraction. So regarding what's going to happen in Venezuela, the United States does not own Venezuelan oil. That's under international and domestic law that belongs to Venezuela. And so with the United States, the companies that have been harmed here over the decades of nationalization of Venezuelan oil, the decades that were the companies that were harmed because they had their assets taken from them, such as ExxonMobil, such as ConocoPhillips, they've gone to international judicial bodies and obtained findings, arbitral findings against Venezuela that are now going through the process. We just had a U.S. federal court earlier this year or last year in October find that Venezuela does owe millions and millions of dollars, for example, to ExxonMobil. Then there has to be a judicial process to provide attachment and seizure of commercial assets outside of Venezuela. It does not provide a right for the United States to go in and simply say that we own the oil there. That's a return to law of the jungle and might makes right, and is really destabilizing and concerning for the entire international world order post-World War II.
Well, and Flaherty, Rachel VanLandingham, I know this is something we're going to be talking about probably all this week. Thank you both. We'll be bringing you back.